Hey students, this is Mr. Moore. I'm here with you guys this week talking about personal finance and budgeting. And the first few weeks of this economics class, we really focus on microeconomic principles. Microeconomics have to do with how individuals make decisions, why they make decisions, what affects those decisions, because there's always choices to be made. Whenever you make a choice, you're going to give up something to get something. And every one of us has to balance that out in our head when we make choices. This week is the final week of really this personal finance, budgeting, money management, financial responsibility. Later in class, we are going to spend time with macroeconomic principles when we talk about GDP, unemployment, how the government gets involved in the economy. Should they? How does it benefit us? What are the pros and cons to that? So there's a lot of other principles that we will talk about, including subsidies, and all kinds of different principles of economics. But the first real month of this class, we try to focus on what you're going to really use in life. How to set up a bank account and what a credit card really means and how to be responsible with that. So the essential question, I always try to start off with one to try to help us all stay focused and help you understand what you need to know to be successful in this class. So today I'm asking, what do you really need to know to be a real adult? At the end of the lecture, I'm going to ask you some questions to ponder on. Does turning 18 mean you're an adult? Technically, yes, but there are so many other things um, that really help us to determine, hey, am I really an adult? Can I be responsible for myself? When you get to the point where you don't need anybody else to run your life, in fact, when you get to the point where you can function on your own, or even a step further, if you can help other people to function, that's what it really means to be an adult. You can take care of yourself, and even a step beyond, you can take care of other people. That's what it really means to be an adult. And so that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about. Now, obviously, I'm a teacher, and I love being a teacher. I love helping students get it. I help love I help students loving what they do and learning and being productive and responsible. And I love it when they love it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So why did I become a teacher? Honestly, I didn't become a teacher because I love sitting at a desk and reading or grading papers and those kind of things. I love teaching because I think that it's important to have a job that doesn't just provide you money, but also gives you a sense of fulfillment. So as you start to find your own way in life and you start to think about what you're going to do as far as a career goes, keep that in mind. There are some jobs that will give you more money than being a teacher. Um, but there's nothing that I think would give me more fulfillment. Now, there's all kinds of other jobs. I'm not saying you got to be a teacher, obviously. What if you drove ambulance? What if you worked on the fire crew? What if you were a law enforcement officer? What if you served your country in the military? Those could all be very rewarding jobs. What if you started your own business, building homes? That could be so rewarding. There's so many jobs out there that could be fulfilling. It's not just about the money. So maybe that's the first economic lesson I would like you to learn this week is economics are not just about money. I know that seems redundant because the whole concept of economics revolves around money, but it's not really about money. It's about choices. It's about decisions. It's about trade-offs. What do I get for what do I give up? As a school teacher, um, I work really hard for 180 days, but there's 365 and one quarter days every year. So that means I get a lot of time off for me and my family. And so there's an economic trade off. Maybe I'm willing to take a job that pays a little less because I have more free time. I was talking to a buddy of mine who owns a business here in Apple Valley, a very successful business, makes way more money than I do. But we had that conversation, and every time I see him, he says, "Oh, That's that magic number, 180 days. Because if you own your own business, although you might make more money, you do have a trade off, right? You're working more. You're almost, as some people say, married to your job. So, those are a couple of things maybe to keep in mind. There are other economic lessons that I've learned from my family members, my in laws, both good and bad, and sometimes really ugly. I've seen some family members make smart investments. They have a nice house, they have a stable family. I've seen other family members who didn't make good economic choices, who hit hard times and had their families struggle. Some of the families that struggle the most are sometimes the family members who have the least amount of education. So, at least in my own sphere, I think that education equals stability, equals better paying job, just because of the experiences I've had in my own family. I've seen some family members get caught in scams, where they had a good savings or a good amount of money and they got taken advantage of. And so, just being street smart, if you will, could help you. Anyways, when we're in class, I really like to share a lot of personal stuff. When I'm posting this on YouTube, obviously, I'm going to be more limited, but there are economic lessons that you can learn from family members as well. Take a look at those family members, uncles, aunts, grandpas, grandmas, even your own parents, and learn lessons from them financially. Even if they don't purposefully teach you, you can learn lessons from them. Here is one of the key things. I talked about this during our first semester, even though we were talking about government. I talked about social economic status and what your social economic status is may determine how you view money and, more importantly, how you use money. People who come from the poor mentality, whether they're poor or not, but if they grew up in a poor family, or they come from a poor neighborhood, or their relatives, or especially their parents are poor, they tend to think about money differently. They tend to see money as something to spend. They get money, they spend it. And you might say, well, duh, what else do you do with money? Okay, that might kind of determine what socioeconomic status you come from. A middle class mentality, those are the people who see money as something to manage. So I have money. It's not an endless supply. If I don't use it wisely, I could get myself into trouble. Money is something I need to reserve to pay bills. It's money I need to set aside in case of a rainy day. Money is something to manage. Okay. If people come from the rich mentality, they don't even think about managing their money. What they think about is investing it. They think about money as a tool to gain more power, prestige, fame, those pleasures in life that people crave, those things that people desire and want. And they're not so stuck in that needs, they're really in that wants phase. That mentality, the rich mentality, people see money as something to invest. I remember when I was a teacher in a training, it's a couple of years ago now. We did a training on the culture of poor. I happened to be working at a different school, and the people who were attending this school, the students, the clientele that would go to this school, definitely came from a lower socioeconomic status. And we had training on kind of understanding different mentalities. And the presenter shared a story with us about this family at the school. This is a true story where the family didn't have money and they didn't have very good clothes. And it was obvious that they were, on the free and reduced lunch program. They were economically poor. And some of the teachers found out at the school that this family didn't even own a refrigerator. To most of us, a refrigerator is just a duh. I suspect that most of us live in that, middle class mentality. We have the basic necessities of life. Well, The teachers pitched in their own money and bought this family a refrigerator. They were, it's that time of the year, they were trying to do a good deed, and so that's what they did. A couple days after the refrigerator was given to this family, the students were all missing from school for a couple days. And when they came back, they all had on Disneyland shirts. And one of the teachers asked them, said, where were you? And where'd you get that nice shirt? And the kid said, oh, we went to Disneyland. Somebody gave us a free refrigerator. So my mom sold the refrigerator and took the money, and we went to Disneyland. And some of the teachers were really upset because they had sacrificed to give this poor family a refrigerator. And it turns out that these they were definitely from the poor mentality. They saw an opportunity, maybe the only chance they'd ever have to have that much money, and it was enough to take the kids, and the mom took them to Disneyland. And some of the teachers were angry and upset and said, "We sacrificed to get these family a refrigerator that they need, and here they spent the money on wants just to go to Disneyland. You don't need to go to Disneyland. That's a want." And so some of the teachers, of course, were from this middle class mentality, and they were taking their ideas and applying them to a different situation, where the poor mentality really sees money as the opportunity to spend, to have a good experience. Boom, right? And so I guess one of my other thoughts is, when people get married, I know this is a classic story in movies and such, but if you marry somebody outside of your social class, there could be some serious problems in your relationship, or even if you seriously date somebody. I had a girlfriend in college, and she came from a really rich family. So it was pretty fun sometimes, because they had like 10 snowmobiles and 5 quads, and they could go on trips around the world. And I came from definitely a middle class background, but we had some serious issues. In fact, maybe that's the reason we broke up, because we were from completely different social classes. So when you are dating somebody seriously, just realize, and maybe you can get over this, but there's different mentalities. And again, one of the reasons people fight the most is over money when they're in a serious relationship. This is more of a macroeconomic concept. When I'm talking about poor, what does that mean? This is a political cartoon per se. It's a thought-provoking cartoon. What does poverty mean? Does that mean they don't even have enough food to eat? That's interesting, because poverty in the United States, oftentimes some of the most obese people come from that poor mentality. I think it has to do with the psychological factor that maybe they see food as something to just eat and consume, because you don't know if it's going to be there again. It also turns out in the United States that food production, really fascinating topic, because sometimes the food that's the worst for you is the cheapest. Only the rich people can afford, the organic, or the healthy food. So it's just a thought provoking, what does it mean to be poor in the United States? It might mean you have too much, food, because we have, government handouts, and we have a healthy society, we have charities, those kind of things. What does it mean to be poor in the rest of the world? Okay, so these again, economics is not just the study of money, it's the study of decisions, it's the study of choices, it's the study of trade offs. One of the things that I'm asking my students to do this week, it kind of lines up with this lecture. I'm going to give my students, a mini project to work on, where they're going to be talking to their families and figuring out how much money it really takes to live at the standard of living that you're living right now. Because I've talked to lots of high school students. I'm almost 20 years into teaching, okay? And when I talk to students and I ask them, how much money do your parents make, do you think? And they throw out really random numbers. How much money do you need to survive each month? And they'll throw out really random numbers. Now, this budget right here is definitely for a middle class family with a few kids. So I don't know, 4 or 5 in the household. I think, this is not an exact number, but the number of thousands of dollars you need per person. So if you had a family of five, you could probably have a nice middle class lifestyle if you were actually bringing in about 5,000 per month. So does that mean if you are a single person, you could survive on 1,000? Yeah, if you had roommates and you were sharing some of the costs, your cost could be about 1,000, if that makes sense. So that's kind of maybe a small rule of thumb. And of course, so many of these questions are it depends. So it's impossible to give you exact numbers on what a healthy budget is. But this is just to get your brain rolling and thinking about, do you want to have enough money to give to the poor, to be charitable? Are there causes out there that you care about? Or are you completely selfish and just want to take care of you and your own family? How much is medical costs? My family's healthy, but my brother, maybe he's in the hospital a lot because he has health concerns. Maybe I have a brother who has diabetes, and that's going to have extra medical costs. So all of these figures could be different. These are just generalities. What kind of a car do you want? Because if you get a fancy car, 500 might not be enough per month, for to make a payment. Utilities. Are you running the AC during the summer, or do you have a swamp cooler? Because that's going to change it by a couple $100 during the summer. Um, there's different kinds of insurance, which ones you're going to have. Do you have to drive down the hill to go to work? This is going to not even be close to the right amount of money for gas. Fun. What do you consider fun and entertainment? Going out to the movies. If you take the whole family out to the movies and get some treats, that might be $100 in one weekend. You know, are you considering your Netflix subscription as entertainment? Are you, your Hulu and your Amazon Prime? I mean, what is it you're paying for? So you really have to break these things down. How much does your family spend on groceries? Department stores for clothes and cleaning supplies besides food. Restaurants, I always put in a separate category because I think that some people get into the habit of eating out and you're spending an excessively more amount of money if you're having somebody else prepare the food for you. To go to Subway and get a sandwich for $8, you can make 8 sandwiches for $8 if you went to the grocery store and bought supplies. That kind of a mentality. There's always extras. You've always got to prep for that. And if you spend all of your money each month, you're not going to ever be saving. Here's another concept that I hope that I could drill into your head. If you start making more each month, and then by mentality, then you start spending more, then maybe you're still living in a poor mentality, even if you're making $6,000 or $7,000. So say you made, $7,000, but you bought a bigger house and a fancier car, and you are spending more money on entertainment. If you still end up with zero in the end, if you still end up with zero in the savings category, are you really better off? Because if you say when I first get married and my wife and I are living on $3,000 a month, and after 3 or 4 years, now we are making like $4,000 or $5,000 a month together, but we're still living on the $3,000 budget, then that might mean we have an extra 1,000 every month, and that's what allows us to save up to pay off our house. This allows us to pay cash for a car instead of getting a loan. I mean, this allows us to invest and to get out of the poor mentality. Remember, the poor mentality is if you have it, you spend it. So those are things to consider. It's essential that you make a budget and you live by it. I have my students in class doing an online program to try to help them learn how to do like double entry bookkeeping. And when you have a budget, if you don't live by it, you will struggle and you'll have issues and problems. And of course, if you spend everything that you make, you will never accumulate wealth. And those are really important concepts. So the ideas taught this week should be seen as kind of a becoming an adult 101 class, if you will. When you go to college, if you take math 101, it's the basics. If you take history 101, it's the basics. So this is kind of the becoming an adult 101 class, asking you, are you ready for the real world? Do you know how to tell the difference between needs and wants? Do you have any skills that will make you worth more than minimum wage? And if you don't have any skills that will make you worth more than minimum wage, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to go to college? Because college is not for everyone, and college is not necessary for everyone. But then again, if you don't have a skill, you're going to be stuck in dead end jobs. Do you know how to cook for yourself? Do you know how to do your own laundry? Do you know how to run your own schedule and manage your own time? Do you know how to shop for deals? Just grocery shopping. I can go to the store and spend $100 less than somebody else and get the exact same thing. Do you know how to get deals? I mean, if I spend $100 less at the grocery store than somebody else who got the exact same amount of stuff, it's almost like I just earned $100 for my family. So shopping deals, that's honestly how I do it. When things are on sale, I'll buy a lot more than we need for that week because I know we're going to need it. Check the expiration date. Hey, this is going to stay good for a year on the shelf. Why not buy it when it's on sale? Do you know how to do a budget? Do you know what resources you have to navigate the adult world? Because just because you move out doesn't mean you can't contact your parents, and maybe your parents don't do a very good job. So maybe you have an aunt or an uncle or grandma or grandpa who could support you as you go through this adulting process, right? Love this video. I highly recommend, if we were in class, I would show it. But there's great resources out there, obviously on YouTube. Whenever you don't understand something, there's resources out there. One of the things we want to help students become is self-reliant. What that means is having true financial freedom. Financial freedom buys you time instead of, debt wastes your time. If you have financial freedom, you have net worth. You have value. You own property. You have a nice car. It's yours. You accumulated things, as opposed to you're just trying to make ends meet. Some people will talk about people who live, from hand to mouth. What does that mean? It means that they're running to the bottom of their bank account every month. They're thinking to themselves, wow, we don't have food in the house, but there's still a week left. I can't go to the grocery store because I don't have any money. That means that money's controlling you instead of you controlling it. So it really goes back to that mentality of, do I live by the poor mentality or the middle class? Or can I get myself to that rich mentality? Even if I'm not rich, can I get to the point where I'm thinking about investing and setting up for my future instead of just living day to day? You know what I mean? Am I paying myself first, or am I paying others? Do I see success as something that's great or something that's bad? Am I spending money or investing it? And investing money might be something like a college degree. I spent, if you say you spend $40,000 to get a college degree, but in the end, you make more money because you got the college degree. Was that investment worth it? If you go to college and you get a degree, but you can't get a job with that degree, maybe it wasn't worth the investment. So these are the kind of things that we're thinking about, right? Are we thinking about financial planning, or are we just trying to survive? You know what I mean? I love these little things. I hope you look at them. Are you being responsible or blaming other things or other people? You know what I mean? Are you paying attention to the future and where you're heading, or dwelling on the past? These are mentality things. And what does it mean to be self-reliant? As I've discussed, before, this is public information. This is what Apple Valley Unified School District teachers make. And here's just a thought process. When I first started teaching, year one, okay, you're making more than minimum wage, so that's awesome. Okay. But a teacher who's smart would think, how can I invest in my future? If I just graduated from college and maybe I have a clear credential, I can only go so far in my job. And this is just a teacher example because that's my world, okay? And I'm showing you the real amounts of money. This is published on the AVUSD website, okay? So it's not like private information. It's not just Mr. Moore's information, it's all teachers in the district information. What I want to show you is that if I invest money in college, so say I graduated from college in my first year as a teacher with a preliminary clear credential, okay, I can only progress so far unless I go get more college experience. So I tell you what I did the first year I was a teacher. You know what I did? I started working on a master's degree program. The very first year I was a teacher. I've talked to some teachers that don't have a master's degree, and I think, what are you doing? That's not very smart. You're not investing in your own future. Even though it cost me about $10,000 to get a master's degree. But if you look at this, I'm almost getting a $10,000 year per year raise, and it never ends. I just keep making more. And the other thing we want you to consider is there's a difference between just having a job versus having a career. A career is something that you build over time. A job is just something to pay the bills right now. This represents number of years teaching. Okay. And so, we're talking about investing 35 years of your life in a profession, having, increasing your annual income, and of course, investing in the amount of education you have so you get paid more. And I like to point out that this is the money that you take home to pay the bills. But if you have a career rather than just a job, you also get what they call fringe benefits. If you look at the bottom in the asterisks, um, you know, teachers are going to get somewhere about $17,000 in benefits every year. Health insurance, life insurance, so we can take our kids to the doctors, and all health and welfare benefits is what they're called. So if you have a career more than just a job, then you start getting, better options. Now, should you go to college? I don't know. It all depends on what your end game is. But just by managing your life, you're starting to have more of a middle class or a rich mentality. If all you're thinking about is just today, then you're still stuck in that poor mentality. So I think it's important to remember that college is not for everyone, and there are some people who don't go to college who make more money than I do. But they only make more money than I do if they have a skill. So if you're good at working on cars, invest in that and make it and be great at it. And you can make great money being a mechanic. You can make awesome money being a plumber. I just had a pipe break at my house, and I had a guy come over, and he was making $75 an hour, and he was even a friend charging me, right? So $75 an hour because he's got a skill, and I paid him that because I don't have the skill. So keep that in mind. You don't have to go to college, but you've got to get a skill. So kind of think about what that means. The stages of financial independence. Are you at a zero right now? I mean, are you dependent on your parents or guardians for everything? Are you kind of solvent because you're not dependent on everybody? Like you buy some of your own clothes, maybe you pay for your own cell phone. Okay. Are you stable? Could you move out when you want to, when you're done with high school? Do you have some freedom? Are you paying off debt? Maybe you're like, I don't even have any debt. So maybe we're still in the, 0 and 1 category right now, but we want to get to that 7 where we have excess. We can help other people. We're not stressed out, about debt, and it's not crushing our lives. We don't have collection agencies trying to get their car back because we haven't made payments on it. So where are you at? Okay. And what are the benchmarks, and one of the things that's interesting, because I'm teaching this economics class to seniors in high school. And so some of this stuff you're not going to hear. I know I'm going to say certain words, but you're not going to really get it. It's interesting because I've taught budgeting classes, um, personal finance classes to adults. And it's interesting the questions that adults ask, and the kind of questions and how attentive they are when I teach this stuff. And of course, they ask questions, and it's very hard to do that when we're living in this digital virtual online experience. But we do have a Zoom twice a week, and you're able to ask a question. So I hope you do. So what's your next move? Because your next move could determine everything. Are you planning to go to college or a trade school? Are you planning to join the military? Are you going to jump right into a job, or are you just going to sit around? Because the consequences of the choices you make right now will hit you in 2 to 5 years. The choices you're making right now, and what are the pros and cons of each choice? This is the kind of point in class where I really like to have discussion and help students really get something out of it. What means more to you, money or time? Which of those two can you make more of? Can you make more money? Yeah. Can you make more time? No. So maybe working your whole life just to have more money isn't the right choice to make. What makes you really happy? And what's your dream? If money and time were not factors, what would you do? What's stopping you from reaching your dreams? And what is the value of your life? So you're going to be making some serious and critical decisions. Even if you don't make a decision, that's a decision. So just some thoughts to consider. And again, I don't necessarily want to push college for everything, but it does seem that that's a statistic that's real and legit. You can go research it online, and these, of course, are just averages. There's always outside, indicators that might affect different things. But I've said this, I think, every week of my notes since this economic class started, that those who have higher college degrees on average make more than those who don't even graduate from high school. And unemployment is higher for those who have less skills, and unemployment is lower for those who obviously have skills and are employable. So, when do you become a real adult? Is it just when you're on your 18th birthday and now all of a sudden you can vote? Maybe you voted this time in the election. Maybe you registered to vote in my government class and you really voted. Maybe you don't believe your vote counted because of all of the election issues. But still, is it when you turn 18? Now, I know legally you become an adult and you can emancipate yourself and you can move out and, all those kind of things. Or is it when you become 21 because now you can legally drink? Or, and here's my point, maybe it's not an age. Maybe it's a mentality. Is it when you become self-sufficient? When you become self-reliant? When you have a full-time job or career where you can support yourself and maybe even others? The learning goal this week, students will understand that people respond predictably to positive and negative incentives. Students will understand that people respond predictably to positive and negative incentives. Folks, there's a ton of great review videos always at the end of my lecture. That is other YouTube videos that kind of, could enhance, expand, or help you understand some of the key concepts. Thank you for being here. This is Personal Finance and Budgeting, and we'll talk to you next week.